Welcome to my home. Come freely. Go safely. And leave something of the happiness you bring. Bram Stoker's Dracula is a gothic horror film directed by Francis Ford Coppola in 1992. The film, for those who hasn't seen it yet for I don't know what reason, it's about the old Count Dracula who relocates to England in order to seduce Mina Murray, who surprisingly looks a lot like his deceased lover Elisabetta. The film is based on the book Dracula by Irish writer Bram Stoker, who wrote it in 1897. It is believed that Bram Stoker got his inspiration from Eastern European legends about vampires and the undead, and while doing his research, he came across the existence of the Romanian prince Vlad Drăculea, Prince of Wallachia, who lived on the 15th century and was infamous for his bloodthirsty way of doing things. The origin of the name Dracula dates back to 1428. Vlad's father, Vlad II, joined the Order of the Dragon, which in Hungarian was called Dracula. This order was devoted to defend Christian Europe against the Ottoman Empire. From then on, he was known as Vlad Drăculea, and that made his son the son of Dracula, which translated to Vlad Drăculea, hence Dracula. In modern Romanian, Dracula means devil, so Vlad III, son of the devil. I'm not going to get into too many history details about the wars that were going on around that time over there, because it's way too complex, and I rather focus on the figure of Vlad Drăculea, which is the one that it is believed inspired Bram Stoker's vampire. In 1442, Vlad II didn't support the invasion of Transylvania by the Ottoman Empire. So he, together with Vlad III, who was 13 at the time, and his other son Radu, went into a diplomatic meeting with the Ottoman Sultan. Once there, he was forced to leave his sons held there as hostages in order to secure his loyalty. That meant that he was changing sides in the ongoing war between Turkey and Hungary. Obviously, this made Hungary really angry. So in 1447, in an attack by the Hungarians, Vlad, together with his eldest son, were killed. A year later, Vlad Drăculea started a campaign in order to regain his father's seat as Prince of Wallachia. He had the Ottoman Empire supporting him, and he did it. Then, he committed his life to avenge his father's death, and that was the beginning of his life as a bloodthirsty warrior. Vlad Drăculea is famous for his love of all kinds of torture techniques, which he usually did in the privacy of his own castle. Some tortures that we know he did were extraction of eyes with hot hooks, amputation of limbs, noses, ears, breasts and genitals in women, burning or boiling his victims alive. He was very fond of slow and painful deaths, and he would usually drink his victims' blood or even dip bread in the blood during dinner. However, his trademark method of killing people was impaling his victims on spikes. He would then put them on display as a sign of warning, so everyone was quite scared of him. It is believed that in between 1456 and 1462, he and his army executed around 100,000 people by impaling them, amongst other ways of torture. His most famous creation, though, is what it is known as the Forest of the Impaled, which is a place in which Vlad had all the trees cut off and used that wood to impale 20,000 Turkish prisoners, making geometrical figures with them. This is the reason why he earned the name of Vlad Tepes, which means Vlad the Impaler. All this took place amongst battles, more war, some years of exile that he had, losing and regaining his position a few times. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to get into too many details of the history, but I do have to say that finally Vlad got killed in 1476. He was on war again with the Ottomans, but some theories say that he could have been killed by his own soldiers. The thing is, the Turks got his head and took it to Constantinople in order to be exhibited on a spike. True, Bram Stoker's Dracula is only a work of fiction. His vampire has very little to do with Vlad's real story. However, he did borrow from him the name Dracula, as well as his bloodthirst. I feel like it's important to mention that the first adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel, it's the 1922 silent German film Nosferatu by F.W. Murnau. They couldn't get the rights to adapt the novel into film, so what they did was changing the name of the characters. The vampire is called Count Orlok, for example, and they had to change a lot of the plot, including the ending. This, however, wasn't enough to avoid a lawsuit, and Bram Stoker's heirs took them to court. The court ruled that all copies had to be destroyed because they didn't have the rights. Luckily, because the film had already been distributed in a few places, some copies survived. Today, it's considered a really influential masterpiece. Even though Nosferatu marked the beginning of the vampire genre, the presentation of the vampire was never followed by any later vampire films. He did set some characteristics that are still used nowadays though, like getting killed by sunlight. Before that, in Bram Stoker's novel, the vampire is weak when he walks during daylight, but he doesn't get killed by it. The vampire Count Orlok, it's an ugly, decadent, putrid creature that you really wouldn't like to be around him, let alone fall in love with him. But in every other later film, vampires are presented as charming, charismatic, venerable, even sexy creatures. That is the reason why Nosferatu is described as a vampire film that actually believes in vampires. Going back to Coppola's film, his Dracula gives us that charming and interesting creature that captivates us. We even like him in the film because his only reason for creating mayhem is love. His only desire is to recover his lost love, Elisabetta. And his evil nature is just because of a really deep heartbreak. Obviously, without forgetting Bela Lugosi's and Christopher Lee's Draculas, it is Gary Oldman's Dracula, the one who set the tone and style that redefine cinematic vampires, with all the characteristics of the romanticism from Gothic horror literature. This is now the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching, and please do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you all next time.